everybody, and welcome to episode number 29 of On the Flank. My name is John George. I'm alongside Joe Kirkpatrick. Say hello, Joe.
Hey, everybody.
And when it comes to analysis, we are on the flank. Joe, we had a little tiny bit of a shorter week, but that didn't mean the drama wasn't there. There was some fantastic matches this weekend. Specifically, we were hyping up Friday. Me and Joe chose 3 games in our weekly predictions from Friday. I failed miserably. I allowed Joe to come back and tie me up.
Both sitting at 500 so far on this season.
Yeah, just an even 500. I think both of us could be doing better overall, Joe. While there is a competition between us and try to be better than you, I would like to be better than you and have a really good record overall, honestly.
We'll be better than a coin flip a little bit, hopefully.
Yeah, exactly. It feels like my choices are random at this point, you know? I could just flip a coin on all of these, apparently.
We'll blame the teams for that. We don't have to blame us for that.
Yeah, it's the teams. They're playing inconsistent. Like if they were playing to their best ability, our choices would have been right.
If they just all played according to our power rankings, then we wouldn't be having an issue.
Yeah, exactly. It's super annoying when they don't listen to us. I'm frustrated. But yeah, we started off on Thursday. Let's jump into it here with my Los Angeles Gladiators. After me being so sad and down on them last week, specifically my boys Decay and Roar, I called them out. I called them out on their deaths, and I'm pretty sure they're avid listeners to the podcast, Joe, because they fixed the problem this weekend.
It must be, yeah.
Yeah, it started off with a fantastic win against an Atlanta Reign team who had just beaten Paris Eternal, which everyone thought was a massive upset. But the Paris Eternal have not been looking good lately at all. So they're upset. Atlanta Reign's upset, looking a little worse, but and now getting 4-0'd by the Gladiators team that didn't look too good this season so far. What do you think this is a sign of the times for both of these teams, Joe? Is Gladiators on the uptrend, and are they Reign on a downtrend? Reign got 2 important games this weekend.
Yeah, I think it's a combination of both, really. I think between both those teams, there's definitely a good showing for LA Gladiators, and definitely lacking something there for Atlanta as well. For a team that is sitting in the top 8, hopefully looking at hopefully looking at playoffs this stage. I think they've been playing very well. It just wasn't quite there on Thursday.
Yeah, Atlanta has like a style very hard to figure out. We've talked about that before, but I don't know. I don't think they pulled that out too much this match, or the Gladiators weren't tricked by it. Really, they knew what was coming. I feel like this was an easy one for them. And of course, in Philadelphia fashion, they have to go to 5 games even against the team with the worst record in the league, the Los Angeles Valiant, and tease them a little bit. Give the Valiant hope that maybe they can get that first win. I mean, in their games, the Valiant have looked severely disconnected at times, but at other times they've looked pretty good, and they've been playing everybody close. This isn't like an 0-40 Shanghai Dragons Stage 1 specifically, where the Shanghai Dragons looked absolutely terrible. The Valiant ended up, spoiler alert, the Valiant ended up going 0-7 in Stage 1 here. But they played it close with the Fusion and look good on some maps, and it's frustrating sometimes, but they need to get the overall wins, right, Joe? They need to do that.
Yeah, it wasn't bad at all. I mean, LA Valiant even took them full holds on Route 66 to win that map 3-0. But yeah, it's just a matter of trying to do everything else. They almost pulled out the reverse sweep all the way to the 3rd round of Busan, but it wasn't quite enough. And we talk about it later. Hopefully, Valiant's making some changes going into Stage 2. But yeah, we could talk about it now if we want. That we haven't seen much of Custa yet at this stage.
Mm-hmm.
Did you hear about that?
Yes, I heard about his high IQ and how he
Yes,
cannot play because of it.
he's benched because his understanding of the meta is too good. It's,
Yeah, higher than the rest of his teammates. There, he's communicating too well. He's saying a bunch of stuff that his teammates can't comprehend because it's so brilliant. It's so amazing when Custa just gets into comms and he's telling them to do all this stuff that, and the other team's like, what is that? What's a Reinhardt? What's a Czar? Like they don't know what's happening. Like they just Custa's confusing them.
yeah. Who was it on Twitter who was saying that they were gonna stream like their explanation of why that was? It was a former player like Nomi or something. I thought.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know, but I didn't. I haven't gone to see that, but I'd be interested in going back and looking at that because yeah, it was. Um, it's an interesting statement for sure. They came out for those of you who don't know, came out in a LA Valiant YouTube video um, that yeah the coach was saying essentially that yeah that there wasn't connections between um, Costa and the team, yeah, because literally, I don't have the quote in front of me, but yeah, just because his thinking was too confusing for all of the other team, and yeah, it's
Yeah,
not a good excuse.
yeah. I mean, I would. That's the way I would want to be benched, honestly. Um, but it's a compliment, honestly. It's
It's true.
too smart for the rest of your team.
Yeah, at this point, if I were Custa, I would. Um, well, I don't know. I might be saying, if I'm too smart for the Valiant, I'm too smart for the Valiant. Get me out of here. But
Yeah.
we'll have to because Custa deserves a team that didn't go 0-7. I think
Oh
is
yeah.
fair to say.
I agree with you 100%. Yeah, but overall, on the other side of the coin, Philadelphia Fusion giving Joe a heart attack once again and going to 5 maps.
Yeah, as they like to do.
Yep, it's just part of the course for you at this point. Yeah, I mean, honestly, against any team, they could go 5 maps. It would be some people would consider this worrying. I would consider this just normal. Philadelphia Fusion could be the champions, but they're going to go 5 maps against everyone. Washington
Yeah.
Justice, they'll go 5 maps. It's going to go to five. Um, even when it's best of seven, it's going to go to 5 maps. That's just what's going to happen. Then we finished off the day with Toronto Defiant, Chengdu Hunters, and Toronto Defiant continues to win. This brought them to 4-2. Um, they ended up winning the first 2 maps. Full hold on Kings Row. Lost Fall Sky Industries. Chengdu was back in it, but then Toronto Defiant ended up taking Route 66 3-2 fashion. I actually missed this game. Anything to say about it if you saw it, Joe?
Not particularly. It's Chengdu is still a little bit inflexible, a little bit having y- y- I think I don't know if it was this match or something, but I've heard before the casters talking about that Chengdu just plays is just playing the Overwatch League on hard mode right now, without people like Young Shalog, without Jakirin, that they're super restricted, and so um, having to go into matches where your opponent knows exactly what you're going to run is just a really disadvantage.
Yeah, but a little foreshadowing to later in the weekend. The next time I see Chengdu play, they finally mix it up, and it's got me scratching my head as to why they did not decide, hey, we could play things besides Hammond before this game against Vancouver that we'll talk about later.
It's true.
But we move into Friday, which was an extremely hype day with games like Paris versus Vancouver, New York versus San Francisco, and Dallas versus Shanghai. And not only the first 2 games not only are extremely hype, but these are the only times these teams will be playing each other this entire season, unless they play in stage playoffs.
It's true.
And every game this day went 4-0. So I don't think people expected that. I think we all expected some close matches. Paris very much on the downward trend. Um, this week they played two tough teams. Vancouver Titans, of course, really good team, and they played them close. They played them pretty good. It was they didn't necessarily look bad, but they could pull out a map win at all, which really stunk for them. Are you worried about Paris at all, Joe? You ranked them pretty highly in your
I,
power rankings. You worried about them?
I did, yeah, and it was it was definitely disappointing. I think to watch them in this Vancouver match. Yeah, did not playing up to what we had expected for sure. I mean, this was the map that had Cruz doing a back cap on Paris's attack for a second point Rialto. That was kind of cool.
Mm.
You probably saw a highlight of that, but of course that was all they got to Vancouver's completion. But yeah, I don't know. It's just something about something about Paris here for 2 weeks now has not looked super great. You know, heading into week five, they've got two big matches they're going to need to win in order to finish maybe at 4-3. Which is probably still not even going to be good enough for playoffs. But yeah, I don't know. This team has been like I said, not great for them this last couple weeks, and didn't certainly didn't play to my expectations. I think we had both picked Vancouver to win this, but certainly didn't play to my expectations going into this particular match.
Yeah, I definitely thought map five at least. I thought it'd be closer. This is supposed to be Paris's meta. And they're not going to make the stage playoffs in that meta. Like that's
It's true.
That's got to be frustrating for them.
It can't be a good sign either.
Yeah, exactly. The meta, if with the amount of nerfs and buffs there have been in these patches, if you don't know, go listen to our last episode where Joe had to go up against the largest patch notes yet. But yeah, the amount it seems like Goats is probably not going to be meta next stage. So this was supposed to be where Paris Eternal shined the most, and they have disappointed. Um, Against teams. I mean, Vancouver's really good at goats. They've had a tough schedule lately, but I think they should beat teams like Atlanta, and I think they should be. I think they should beat the Shock too. Honestly, if they're one of the best goats teams out there, and they keep talking themselves up like that, they should be beating the Shock. They should be beating Atlanta. The Paris disappointing stage. We'll see if they can go 2-0 next week, because I certainly think they can. Um, but they've been disappointed these past 2 weeks. Speaking of the Shock, they faced the New York Excelsior, and they got 4-0'd as well. This was another close one though. You had Numbani go to 5 points. You had Volskaya go to 6 points. So some very long matches. This was an exciting one. San Francisco just couldn't pull out a map. They just couldn't do it. You had some in their loss. Super still looking impressive. I like how I'm mainly talking about the Shock, because for New York, 4-0 is just like, yeah, they're
This
good.
is what they do. This was the series they clinched them a perfect stage, second in history and first in this season. Of course, it's looking like Vancouver will probably get one of their own, but yeah, New York just they're playing with their top form, and it's working out for them. I mean, not really much you can say.
Oh yeah, and this was by far the most impressive win at the stage. I feel like they had a pretty easy schedule, stage one, and they had a nice little test here to see if they could do it and go 7-0, and they did. They passed flying colors. This team is insanely good, and I I would say they would dominate playoffs and stage playoffs if there weren't such chokers. So luckily they're some chokers, and that'll make it more competitive in playoffs. Dallas Fuel, Shanghai Dragons. I really thought Shanghai was gonna learn from their mistakes last week. They didn't, Joe. They decided we're gonna make the same mistakes, but worse. We're gonna make them even more. I simply just think this game was riding on Shanghai's mistakes. Dallas Fuel ended up winning this one 4-0 as well. and close once again. All these all these 4-0 matches had extremely close maps. Um,
Eh. Yeah,
but
Dallas, like I said, came back after this first series, a doubleheader essentially for
mhm.
Dallas and Shanghai, back-to-back weeks. They came back and they were prepared for the Sombra. Shanghai's been really liking that. RCK had a great match on the Sombra there for Dallas, and yeah, they were just feeling good um, about the plans that they had clearly refined from last week to this. It was yeah, it just looked good. Um, I think it probably could be argued that Shanghai was having an off match, particularly considering how they did later in the week. But yeah, I don't know. I think it was definitely interesting the way this one came out.
Yeah. I think Shanghai, they've got talent. They're making mistakes. I don't know what it is. Pressure. I don't know. I don't know what it is. But they clearly got talent and they can win against good teams like Villanova and Spitfire, which we'll get into later. But Saturday, we kicked it off with Houston Outlaws, just beating the Los Angeles Valiant 2-1, saying you're 0-7. Sorry guys. It's over. It's over for you. I'd like to apologize. Me and Joe are both sick, by the way. Joe's got a cough. I've got a runny nose. So it's a podcast of grossness this week, which is fantastic. But we must go over the Overwatch League, right, Joe?
It's true.
No matter how sick we are. If we were both in the hospital, we would get on our computers and record. But yeah, Houston Outlaws ended up taking this one, and I'm impressed by how many wins the Outlaws are able to pull out, especially after how low everybody had them in their power rankings. And they're able to continually pull out these W's. Of course, the Valiant dropped to 0-7, so this is the most impressive win. It's against the worst team record wise. So
Yeah, is this
um,
the only the second team to have a winless stage? Maybe. I feel like
yeah, because
Florida probably at least got
the
one win every stage.
yeah, I think Florida did. Shanghai was, of course, 0-10 every stage. So this is the second team, not the second time, but the second team to ever do it. Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, 2-1 for Houston. Notably, this was, Houston before this match was like 2-11 on Route 66 or something, and so now they're 3-11. That was impressive, pulling out a full hold even.
Yeah. Breaking the curse. Breaking the curse. Soul Dynasty. Washington Justice. Um, God, Wizard. He's. I thought he was a genius, Joe. He lied to us.
Yeah, well, it was on one of these watch point segments this week, probably a pre-show. But I don't know what day they were doing loot boxes for the teams, and so he did a box for the Washington Justice that included some credits, which was like chocolate coins or something. But she's like, here, with all these, you could buy another genius.
You need at least one more
Yeah,
genius.
but now you have a big enough budget, I think was her comment, to get another genius.
Yeah, I mean, just a disaster overall for Washington Justice as far as memes go this season. I mean, starting off with Kate Mitchell and the terrible bad budget that is clearly the biggest problem that they have. They just don't have the talent. And then Wizard comes out and he says he's a genius, and he says we're last at everybody's power rankings. I don't know why we're so good. And then he has yet to win a game for them as a coach.
It's kind of
Um,
important to be able to
it
do.
is. Yes, it is. You cannot make playoffs if you don't win. I've done the research, and specifically on the Overwatch playoff machine, and I tried to do every scenario where Washington does not win a single game, but they never made it into playoffs. So
Not even if just every team goes 0-7. Nobody ever
yes.
wins a single match.
Actually, yeah. Wait, you can't tie. Damn
Yeah, not at all, unfortunately.
Ugh, it was hard. I thought I was onto something. I thought it was a genius for a second. I thought that was the genius move that Wizard was going for, but it's
Yeah,
not. And then my Los Angeles Gladiators, they come out and they beat one of my other favorite teams this season, the Guangzhou Charge, in a battle of two of my favorite teams to watch. And the Gladiators, what a week for my boys. They looked good finally. They looked good. But this is a big loss. This is a tough loss for the Guangzhou Charge now because they're are in the standings. Are they still in? Yeah, they're still in
yeah,
the
they're in
stage
eighth.
playoffs. They're right on the
A win,
cusp, but
a win next week
but
could do a lot of good for them. But
they're facing the Vancouver Titans is the issue here. They needed this win. They needed this one. I think if they would have won this, I would have easily given them a nice little stage playoff spot. But 3-1 loss here for the Guangzhou Charge. Very unfortunate for them. They came out hot on Nepal, but ended up losing the rest of the maps. Gladiators, are they? Obviously, they cannot make stage playoffs. They're eliminated. But are they? Are you smelling a 7-0 stage two, Joe?
I don't know about that, but I know we definitely both had them ranked pretty highly. That yeah, whether it was just beginning of season jitters or trying to work out team relationships, they'll have 3 weeks now between stage one and stage two to really get all that worked out. And yeah, I think they're definitely going to be continuing to perform well for sure.
Yeah. It might have been some jitters, specifically for Roar and Decay, because they looked a lot better this week. A lot better. So impressed by them. The Hangzhou Spark continue to be a very confusing team, and they are not cashing in their scrim bucks at all. And they lose 3-0. They are eliminated from stage playoffs. 3-0 to the Toronto Defiant. The Toronto Defiant, 5-2, sitting there alone in third place, up at the top of the standings. An expansion team I don't think people expected to be top three, Joe.
I know
Um,
I didn't.
yeah, I think they had a little bit of an easy stage one schedule with their two losses going up against the Excelsior and Atlanta Reign. They had wins. Joe, do you recall exactly? Boston. They had Chengdu, Hangzhou. Who were the other two that they
For
played? They played
for
someone this
Toronto, they
week.
played Houston. I know,
Houston, yes. But yeah, they
and
they had a
Atlanta, LA Valiant.
LA Valiant. That's the other one. Yeah, so their stage one schedule a little easier than most, um, but they're still 5-2, and you got to give them credit where credit's due. Bishop, he's a great coach. They've got some great players on this team, and I'm sure we'll be talking about Toronto Defiant depending on their stage playoff um, run and how well they do. But the Hangzhou Spark, Joe, I mean, everyone came in hyping this team up. What is happening? What's
Yeah,
going
and they
on?
had a good start to the stage too. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's these last couple weeks have been weird for them. Um, yeah, I don't know what to say for sure. I mean, it's
Speechless.
yeah. I mean, certainly the second part of their schedule has been harder than the first. That's fair to say.
Mm-hmm.
Matches against San Francisco and the Gladiators in Toronto here at the second half of the stage, where they started their first week with Shanghai and LA Valiant, and then Houston, um, weeks one and two. But yeah, I don't know.
And they lost to Houston.
It's true.
Yeah.
um, yeah, it's I don't know. It's gonna be interesting. They play Shock again next stage. They play Vancouver next stage. Yeah, it's hopefully they could come up a little bit better. Like you said, lots of people were really hyped about this team, and I think deservedly. But they just weren't able to show it. I think
Yeah.
really at this stage.
Yeah. I agree with you. They've got the talent. They certainly have the talent. They're just not looking. Once they went on stage, they just didn't. Sometimes they're not looking like they're playing as a team too much. The cohesion issues are definitely there for the Hangzhou Spark. A little bit of a disappointing stage, finishing at 3-4. They're like at 14th place right now with a -4 map differential. So I definitely think people had way higher expectations for this team. Maybe that bogged them down a little bit. But yeah, they had, I think, a very unfortunate stage that they would like to get back. But you still have 3 more stages, like you're saying, Joe. You still got 3 more. You got tons of time to fix some issues. Especially now, they don't play next week, and they don't play in stage playoffs, and then they have another week break before stage 2. So they've got a long time to sort of take a break. That's great. That break is great, Joe. That is a really good break. 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Then we move on to Sunday, which was my personal favorite day, and I think Joe, I think it might be yours too.
It was really, definitely really good.
Yeah, you start off with the Shock, who went to a 3-0 map lead real quick on the Paris Eternal, winning that series. Paris ended up taking the last one. We already talked about our disappointment in Paris. San Francisco Shock, they got 4-0'd by the Excelsior, but they came back and they looked very good in this game. Specifically, I think Super looked really good with some great Orisa plays, some great Reinhardt, of course, as usual. Ever since Zoe called this man super
Called
bad,
him super bad.
he's been turning up. But the Shock, I think they had the hardest schedule. Them or the Gladiators had the hardest schedule this stage. And the fact that they're 4-3 is pretty impressive. Pretty impressive for the San Francisco Shock. Paris Eternal, another loss. Do you think the Shock team just gets better as the season goes on? I mean, they're young, they're inexperienced as a team. I feel like they're getting used to it here in this stage, and maybe they'll eventually be able to beat teams like New York instead of getting 4-0'd. Do you agree with me there?
Yeah, I think they certainly have the potential to. Like I said, or somebody said, that yeah, it's another team that they were really hyped, obviously before going into this stage or going into the season, and people expected a lot of things out of them. And it is a really young roster, or at least the starting players are really young. But yeah, it's just a matter of I think helping them get them into the swing of things. I think it's going to be helpful.
Yeah, and I think that they still have a bunch of pieces of talent that they're not showing, specifically Striker, which makes sense to me because I think just Striker's apparently not good in Goats meta. And you have Sinatra on Zarya. I think Striker is probably the only hero he would be good at. It's maybe Zarya, and Sinatra's just one of the best Zaryas in the league by far. I think he's leading in the stat damage per 10 minutes right now. So
I wouldn't be surprised.
yeah, yeah, Sinatra's a god Zarya. So you still haven't seen someone like Striker, and when there's a DPS heavy meta, you'll see Striker again. So Shock still hasn't shown like all their pieces to the puzzle either. And I'm still impressed by their stage 1. I know people expected them. I think I had a very high in my power rankings. People expected them to be number 1 overall, but that's for the overall season, baby. I never said they would have a perfect stage 1. All right,
It's true.
and then we move on to the Shanghai Dragons, the team that went 0-40, beating the reigning champion London Spitfire. What a day for Shanghai fans in 5-map fashion with an amazing C9 by London Spitfire to make up for Shanghai's worst C9 of the season of all time, maybe, on Dorado. They just had a nice little back cap on Route 66. And it was a good distance too.
Yeah, yeah. This was just ping pong Overwatch the whole time. I mean, London took the ball 2-0, and then Shanghai full held to take Kings Row 3-0, and then London pulled off the same thing on Anubis, and then Shanghai pulled off the same thing on Route 66 to send it to map 5. And then they went all the way to three maps on Ilios. It was real crazy to watch.
Oh yeah. It looked like Shanghai wasn't going to pull that last point off in the end too, and then they finally did in the last fight. That was a crazy game. That was a great game. Definitely some big bug. Definitely definitely one team looking superior on each map. The maps weren't too close themselves, but the series overall was. And Shanghai ends up taking it from the London Spitfire, which is really important for the London Spitfire stage playoff hopes because it's now a must win, and they're facing the Seoul Dynasty next week. Shanghai can't make stage playoffs, but 3-4, Joe, 3 wins. This Dragons team is not the same one as last year.
It's true.
They're actually able to win. It is true. Boston, Florida Mayhem. Boston came out 4-0, looked super impressive. Mayhem continually looking not impressive. And anything else to say about this one, Joe?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's hard to see exactly, where. Hold on, let me. Yeah, so where they're headed for sure. Florida, I mean, going into stage two, it's not exactly pretty, but it's I don't know. Florida is Florida. They're just good enough that we can't tease them too mercilessly, but at the same time, it's not exactly promising either. So
it's time to put former guest of the On the Flank show, Andro, in. Joe, is it time to put Andro in? She deserves it.
Oh yeah, that'd be something. I mean, just got to sign her at this point. Put her in for what? BQB? Is he the tank for Florida? Something like that.
I think he plays Sombra, doesn't he?
Oh yeah, you're right. I don't know.
Yeah. Put her in for BQB anyways. Do it. Then we finished off with an insane Vancouver Titans Chengdu Hunters game. Went to 5 games. I don't think anyone expected it to go 5 games. And they finally put a Mung on Reinhardt, and he was landing some insane shatters and looking really good on Reinhardt. And like I said earlier, the podcast begged the question, why weren't they doing this a bit earlier? Because they look good on goats. They were just saving it for Vancouver Titans game, maybe.
I mean, last week I said, just take a couple weeks and learn Winston. But maybe for the better part of this stage, he was taking a couple weeks and learning Reinhardt goats.
Yeah. Maybe that was it.
It's hard to say. He also has 1 second of Roadhog play now. I was looking on his player page earlier, so that makes total
exactly
of 4.
1 second.
Exactly 1 second of Roadhog play.
Nice.
So it's a total of 4 heroes he's played now.
Wow. Absolutely fantastic. This one was a lot closer than I thought. And I think we should transition to maybe our one game you should rewatch from each of us, and mine is this one. My friends were visiting this weekend, so I didn't get to watch too many games live. But Sunday I got to watch live, and this game I got to watch live, and it was fantastic. Chengdu is just so much fun to watch. They even make goats fun to watch.
It's true, just because you don't expect it.
Yeah, exactly. You're like, goats? This is crazy. Which I think once again proves that the only reason people hate goats is because it's so dominant. Because I think it's fun. I think goats has grown on me significantly. And I was absolutely hating goats at the beginning of this stage, but I've enjoyed watching some goats and some high level goats play specifically. But yeah, Chengdu Hunters they don't finish the stage yet, but they're 2-4. They got a loss here, of course. Vancouver continuing their perfect run. They're at 6-0 now, and if they get a really good map score against Guangzhou Charge, they can take that number 1 spot with a good map differential. If they end up go 4-0ing Chengdu or Guangzhou, if they 3-1 them, then they have the same exact map differential as New York, which is I don't know what the tiebreaker goes to after that. I think it involves head-to-head. Yeah, head-to-head.
They just have to play another series before they actually play the playoffs.
Yes.
Actually, that might be what it is. I don't know.
Yeah, it could possibly be actually, and that's important. They have to figure out who the number one seed is. Wow, we just uncovered something, Joe. So if Vancouver wins 3-1, it's a direct tie with the New York Excelsior. Then what do you do? Well, is it a direct? Yeah, I guess it is.
Well,
New York has a
actually,
tie.
if Vancouver wins 3-1, then they go 21-7. No, then
23
they
and
go
seven.
23-7 in maps, and Vancouver's 22-6. So,
New York's 22-6-1.
or Vancouver's 22. New York is 22-6. Jeez, I can't talk. So I wonder if they do by the most wins or the fewest losses. Let me see.
Hmm.
Map differential, head-to-head map
Tiebreaker.
record, head-to-head match record.
Head-to-head match record. Okay. Well, that doesn't
If
help.
if if a tie persists, then
Breaking the tie is
um,
necessary to determine invitations to stay playoffs. Well, this isn't a invitation thing. This is a seeding thing, which actually could be big because in the seventh seed right now, San Francisco Shock, which is I would not want that as a first round matchup personally.
it's
I would
true.
rather have whoever's in the eighth seed, even if it's Guangzhou or any of these other teams over here, like Houston, London, Seoul, Boston. I would much rather have the eighth seed than the seventh seed. That's big. So they
Yeah.
might have them play a little tiebreaker game, which would be interesting. Um,
And of course, if Vancouver 4-0s, then that won't be a problem. But
but 3-1ing them, it
that
could
would
be a
be
through. I have it. I think I have it in my playoff machine as a 3-1 right now, Joe. It's gonna happen.
that'll be very interesting.
Yes. Maybe they don't though. Maybe there is some. Maybe they're in the rule book. There it goes into
Uh,
more depth than on the standing page.
yeah, maybe they go
Depending on
by
how things work.
more map wins or fewer map losses or something.
Yeah, yeah.
Who knows?
Uh, who knows? But yeah, that's my one game to rewatch. Joe, what was your one game to rewatch?
Yeah, so mine was I gotta look at it, but I think it was, yeah, the London Shanghai match. It was just really cool, pulling out lots of different stuff on both sides, and as a Philly fan, I will admit to rooting against London a little bit so far this stage, and probably continuing on here into the season. But um, yeah, it was just a cool one to watch.
Yeah, I agree with you there. MVPs of the week. Every week we crown an MVP um, to one of the players who we think performed exceptionally well. I think as we get later to the stage, my MVPs of the week are more and more turning into like possible MVPs of like the whole stage. Just people I want to like give credit that I haven't given credit to so far, and that's the reason why I'm giving mine to Dante of the Houston Outlaws, who I think had a great game against the Los Angeles Valiant. But I think he's pretty much the reason that this team has had 3 wins and is at 3-3 and in 11th place when nobody. I mean, people didn't rank them that high. People didn't think the Houston Outlaws were that good. They had a great win against the Hangzhou Spark. They've had a little bit of an easy schedule, but I still think Dante has been performing super well. I think that trade was fantastic, and I certainly think he's the MVP of the Houston Outlaws so far. So I just wanted to give him a little bit of a shout out, give him MVP of the week because he had a fantastic performance against the Valiant. Dante with a great season, and I think his season only gets better if Tracer gets back in the meta or some DPS heroes get back in the meta. He's a very talented player. I'm glad he got traded to the Outlaws because I don't think he really would have had a place on the Shock with that many DPS players. So
Yeah.
he's able to shine. He's able to carry here, which is fantastic. Who's your MVP of the week? I'm very sad because I also wanted this as my MVP of the week, but Joe, you can have him.
Yeah, so mine this week has got to be a Meng. They're from the Chengdu Hunters. Um, Obviously, I mentioned before I'm a main tank player, so it's cool to watch him work. But also, really surprising a lot of people this week when their match against Vancouver in particular, showing off what exactly he can do. And while it's not going to be so helpful for them this stage, it's definitely uh, it's promising for Chengdu for sure going into again this stage break. Uh, yeah, between 1 and 2.
Yeah. And I think he's another one that sort of deserves a shout out for the whole stage too, taking over that main tank role when that's not his main role. Um, he took it over and he's been pretty helpful to Chengdu, and he's probably been the main reason they're getting so many eyes with his Hammond play, and just Chengdu's insane play and how much fun they are to watch. So, despite I mean they didn't have the best stage, but among still looked pretty good. So the standings going into the final week of the stage. You of course have New York Excelsior 7-0 up top, Vancouver Titans 6-0 right behind them, and then Toronto Defiant in third at 5-2. You got Fusion and Fuel both at 4-2 behind that. Atlanta Reign at 3-2, San Francisco Shock 4-3, and Guangzhou Charge at 3-3. Those are currently your top eight. So those people are all in good position, specifically Defiant Titans and Excelsior, who have clinched playoffs. But the rest of those top eight are in a pretty good position. Besides, I'd say like the Charge, who are at 3-3, and that's basically tied with the Boston Uprising Dynasty Outlaws Spitfire. So there are a lot of people in contention for the stage playoffs spots. Lots of them left, and then you have a bunch of people eliminated from stage playoffs, and that includes the Gladiators, Spark, Dragons, who are all at 3-4. I don't believe Eternal's eliminated yet, right, Joe? Because they can go 4
If
and
they
3.
get 2 wins, they'll at least tie.
Yeah, so they're at 2-3. Bears Eternal is. Their map differential is pretty abysmal right now, so it's going to be very hard for them to make stage playoffs. But 2-4-0s won't hurt. Chengdu Hunters, they're out of stage playoffs at 2-4, and then you have Florida Mayhem at 1-5, and Washington Justice at 0-5, trying their hardest to avoid that 0-7 stage that the Los Angeles Valiant have at the bottom of the standings. Yeah, lots of people done with the stage, Joe. Lots of people still have 2 games left too. Any surprises here for you specifically that you want to point out?
I mean, we sort of alluded to this earlier in the show, but I mean, Hangzhou being so low is notable. It's sort of been on a decline
Mm-hmm.
going through this stage, and Paris to an extent too, particularly with my power rankings personally. Um, and then I think Toronto probably is standing out on the top. We talked about they've sort of had a little bit of a weak stage in terms of their opponents. But to have them up there is going to be exciting. I think as this playoff weekend is shaking down, not this
Mm-hmm.
weekend, but the next.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
I'm hype. I'm hype
yeah,
for stage playoffs. Those are going to be some really good matchups all across the board. But like I was saying earlier, I was saying this when we were looking at the schedule at first. And there's definitely some teams who are going to make stage playoffs based off of the fact that their schedule was super easy in that stage, which really does suck. Because I do think you have some teams with some hard schedules that just didn't perform to their best ability this stage. Who I think would make for some great performances in the stage playoffs. So. It does suck that it can be luck of the draw sometimes on your schedule, but yeah. But besides that, I would say it's been a pretty good stage. You have 4 expansion teams in the top 8 currently, which is great. I don't think people expected that. I think people only expected Vancouver. I think both of us only had Vancouver, Hangzhou in our top 8,
I think so.
if
Yeah,
any expansion teams. So Toronto, Atlanta, Guangzhou, all surprising us, being top 8 teams so far. But let's move on to the news. We have we have some more patches here. Obviously, these aren't as big
it's
because
true.
one of them is basically exclusively bug fixes, right?
Yeah, yeah. There's a few
So
small changes. It's
Joe,
like
if you want to take us into the patches, baby, do it.
absolutely, yeah. It's like we said last week. We did a whole big rundown on 1.34. Um, which is on the PTR right now. A whole bunch of big changes. I think the main note about that in general is that it's kind of cool um, at the frequency and degree of updates and changes we've seen so far for this particular PTR cycle specifically. Just that it seems like Blizzard might actually be using the PTR for testing changes and trying to see what works and what doesn't, and making live adjustments, as necessary, which is cool. That's kind of what we want to see, to be able to hopefully increase the update cycle a little bit and keep things fresh, because I think they hopefully realize that that's important for the health of the game and all that. Um, but yeah, so March 6th, this was the third or maybe even the fourth change to 1.34 already. A couple changes for Batiste. His biotic launcher, that's his left click and right click combined, can now be stopped from automatically reloading. There's a setting in his hero settings to do that. Um, which, on the one hand, you're like, why would that ever be helpful? But the way it is, by default, is that your gun will automatically reload when either your left click ammo or your right click ammo runs out. And you've got 30 something shots on your damage dealing weapon, but only like 8 or 10 healing grenades. And so if you were healing your team and you ran out of grenades, and then all of a sudden you had a flanker dive you, and you had um, to take that fight, but you wouldn't want to be stuck in the middle of a reload animation, despite having bullets in your gun. So it's an example where that might be helpful. So it's just gonna end up being a personal preference. I did check on the PTR because I was curious, and if you turn automatic reload off, your gun won't automatically reload even if you empty both of your ammos. That you'll actually have to press R every time. So you'll have to, if you do that, you might be keeping more active track either in your head of how many shots you have, or flicking down to your ammo counter more frequently. But there's strategic value either way.
Mm-hmm.
Just a matter of what you're thinking about. The immortality field made significant changes to its visual appearance and sounds. It's a little bit less of a cone, or a little bit less of a cylinder outline now. That's about it. There's still a big line on the ground. There's still uh, the drone in the sky. Apparently, your allies are like more gold looking um, than they used to be, for what that's worth. So
Golden.
yeah, just like Orisa, who can look more golden
Yeah.
now.
I mean,
Um,
that's
but
good. You got to make it as apparent as possible that these people are immortal.
it's true, because otherwise people won't know.
Yes, exactly.
Junkrat got a huge buff originally, increased his damage from 120 to 140. They've brought that down from 140 to 130 now. The damage for his left click grenades with a direct hit. Obviously, there's a little bit of splash too. Um, so it reduces his damage output there a little bit. Notably, you can still use a direct hit, left click, and a mine combo to deal 250 damage, 130 for the grenade and 120 for the mine, which will kill something like a Doomfist or a Brigida with some good aim. So that's notable. That's still possible. But his just general burst damage has been reduced a little bit, and then well, actually, not even to trade with that, but to go along with that, is that Riptire has been nerfed with its ultimate cost increased by 10%. And so actually Junkrat's damage from where he is on live has actually been increased by a little less than 10%, which means that the Riptire charge rate is just slightly decreased to where it is on live currently. Um, so a little bit of a nerf to Riptire, but Junkrat's dealing a little bit more damage compared to where he is on live. So that's something. And then Zarya, she had her right click grenades that had the variable radius on live, which was like anywhere from 2 to 3 meters depending on her charge. that it was changed on the PTR to anywhere between 1 and 2 meters, depending on her charge. But now, is that right? Or maybe it was like 2 to 4 and 1 to 3 or something. I don't know. But
Mm,
at any rate, the way Zarya is now, her right click explosion radius is just 2 meters, regardless of energy level. So that variable has been removed. Hopefully, I'll make it a little bit easier to aim as Zarya if you know approximately, well, you know exactly the size that explosion is going to be every time, which is nice. And excuse me, like you mentioned, several bug fixes, notably Batiste's biotic launcher. We used to be able to heal through barriers. It can't anymore. That's not intentional, and obviously that's enemy barriers. Ally barriers is fine. Um, the immortality field shouldn't be able to be placed under a payload. That's been fixed now. And it is going to be destroyed when the payload runs over it, like it does with Mei's Ice Wall, for example. So those are things to note. And they also put in here, they said they fixed a bug where Lucio's wall jump speed was lower than expected. We talked a little bit about
mm,
that last week. That Lucio players were saying that the Lucio changes were actually more of a nerf potentially than anticipated because Lucio doesn't actually spend much time actually wall riding when you're trying to maximize his speed. So hopefully the wall jump speed being increased a little bit hopefully will take care of that a little bit. And that's
mm-hmm.
the March 6th patch for the PTR.
Give you a little break, give you a little breather. Whew.
Yeah.
The old patches. The patches are getting to you. They're killing you slowly, Joe.
Something like that. I don't know. And then yeah, a very very small patch also made on March 8th to the PTR with just some bug fixes really. More visual changes for Batiste. Um, more bug fixes for different heroes. Lots of damage boost bug fixes on this one. Um, yeah,
Just
that's
bugs.
about it.
Squashing bugs.
Squashing bugs,
Um,
it's important.
they're going easy on you this week, Joe. I'm not impressed by them. They should have had at least 30 more changes. All
Yeah, I
to
don't know.
heroes.
Hopefully, in the next 3 weeks or so, we'll get this PTR pushed to live. Because
Yeah.
again, hopefully that'll mean that Overwatch League Stage 2 will be played on that
Hey,
1.34 patch.
hey, I'm
Right now they're on 1.32, which is the patch that used to be live before the one that is live now.
here's a nice little advantage. The teams that aren't playing next week and aren't in stage playoffs have they get to practice on this BTR patch like 2 weeks early.
It's
Um,
true.
that's fantastic for them. That's very nice. So that's just another piece of proof I need for the Los Angeles Gladiators 7-0 stage 2.
There you go.
Um, they will be so well practiced on this patch. It'll be insane.
It'll be Masters of Paris.
Yes.
Speaking of which, I guess we don't really know the map pool either. We'll have to
Yeah,
find
we
that out at
don't.
some point.
I think in the rules it said it said it will be revealed like a week before the stage. So we'll get that soon. Week number 5, the last week of the stage before the stage playoffs. We only have 8 matches this week. That is similar for most ends of the week, unless there is a travel weekend. The homestand weekends are supposed to be the only weeks that have the 8 games.
Yeah. There's one
Um,
more bit of news,
oh,
um, which
oh
we
yeah,
sort of alluded to, but that LA Valiant have fired their head coach after a winless stage. Coach Moon
yes.
is out. Um, Presumably somebody else will be in, but if that's what it takes, go for it. That's what I say.
Yeah, I can't believe I completely skipped that. That's pretty big news. Head coach gone. Costa, is he in? But
Hopefully.
yeah, yeah, I think a lot of people were pointing to him for their problems, and I think usually when a team, I mean, they're playing people close, they've got a little bit of a tough schedule, and they still go 0-7. I feel like that's usually some coach problems and some coaching issues. I think the team had some cohesion issues and stuff like that. And they were number one in the Pacific last year. They won the Pacific Division, and then they come out 0-7, worst record in the league so far. That's not good. And you have to make some changes. And Coach Moon was the change they decided to make first. So we'll see. We'll see what happens there. They've got some time here before stage 2 to hire a new head coach. So I'm sure me and Joe will update you when that happens. But yeah, I think we both agree. I don't think anyone disagrees that this was and says this was a bad decision. When you go 0-7, there's not too many bad decisions you can make besides keeping everybody and not making changes. That's the only decision you can make that's bad. But yeah, can we get into week 5 now? Any more pieces of news that John forgot about?
I think that's it. I think that's it.
We're safe. We're safe. All right.
If you haven't seen the clip of Bryn on Watchpoint saying in Korean about how he's the worst analyst, you should go out and watch that. It's funny.
Yeah. I didn't see that part.
Oh yeah, the bumper trolled him. It was great.
Oh, nice. Was Bumper teaching him Korean?
That they had Bumper on the desk after I think
Yes.
Saturday, Sunday the Watchpoint Post show that all of the analysts they had a question that they read in Korean, and
Mm.
it was like I don't know who else was on the desk, but they all read their questions, and then it was Brent's turn, and his question was just, "I am the worst analyst."
Wow. Great question by Brad. I can't
Anyway,
wait for Sideshow to come back and Sideshow and Bren to be reunited.
yeah.
It's going to be a glorious day. We need more desk. Give me more desk.
Eh.
Eight matchups this week. And
Yes,
as
actually,
you
week
like
5.
Yes, and as you like to point out on our nice little document here, 7 of the 8 matches have playoff implications. That one match that doesn't would be the Washington Justice versus the Florida Mayhem, which shall be a snooze fest. But the rest of them all involve teams that can still possibly make playoffs, which was pretty easy for us to choose the 4 games, Joe, that we're going to be picking this week. That's right. We are not downsizing the amount of games that we choose each week. We are continuing on the 4 streak, Joe. There are good enough matches here, and I'm gonna take the lead this week, Joe. I really will. To point out some matches that are important that we're not picking, Paris Eternal faces the Washington Justice, which it should end their losing streak. But if it doesn't, then I think we have some real issues here. Some real
Then we have
worries,
some bigger
things to worry
questions.
about.
Absolutely.
Yes. Another game is we are not picking this one. Chengdu Hunters and Atlanta Reign. Chengdu Hunters looking really good at Goats. Do they pull it out again against Atlanta? We'll see. Can they pull off a big upset? We'll see. And then who else are we not picking? We're not picking Guangzhou Charge versus Vancouver Titans, which is a rematch actually from earlier in the stage where they went to 5 maps. So we'll see if Guangzhou can pull it off this time and win it all, but we will not be picking that one. We are going to be picking the other 4 matches. London Spitfire, Seoul Dynasty. That's the first one. This is a throwback. It gives me nostalgia for season 1 because this matchup was always so hype. It was 2 of the best teams. It was 2 of the best rosters. I was always so hyped for it. Seoul Dynasty has looked very spotty this stage. Same with London Spitfire. They're both at 3-3, and this one they're affecting their stage playoff hopes a lot. The way I have it playing out in the playoff machine, I think even if this goes to 5 maps, I think the winner is gonna make the playoffs pretty much. But I think this is gonna be a close one, Joe. Who do you have in this matchup? This is a tough one.
Yeah, so I think combination of several things. I sort of mentioned a little bit earlier. I've kind of been rooting against London. this stage, so there's that. They also didn't look, it should have been a win over Shanghai for London. That's definitely what they were expecting. And for them not to pick that up is a little concerning. And that plus that I think Seoul, that I've picked them I think at least once in the past and they failed me. And it was disappointing, but I think they definitely have the chance not to fail me again. I think I'm going to pick Seoul. I think for this match,
Hmm. Picking
it's
Seoul.
definitely going to be close though. You're right.
Yes. I think another good reason for you to pick Seoul here is Fisher is fantastic against his old teams, specifically London Spitfire. He just ran a train on them last season on the Los Angeles Gladiators. He really liked to beat them. I don't know if that has went away all of a sudden because the Gladiators are his most recent ex team, or if he's just gonna go absolutely ham once again once it comes to the London Spitfire. Honestly, we've talked about this over and over, but it all depends on Fisher and how he's playing. That's what makes Seoul good. That's when Seoul looks their best, and that's why I am taking Seoul as well because I do think Fisher is going to have fire under him once again against the London Spitfire, and I think he will perform his best. I think Seoul takes this one as well. So similar picks, but we move on to Boston and Dallas, which is the third game on Saturday, right after the London Seoul match. Also, huge playoff implications here. Dallas is currently in the top eight. Boston is just outside of it at 3-3. So Boston needs a win here. Same with Dallas Field, though, pretty much. If they lose, there are so many teams in contention for those spots that it's possible that they get kicked out. They get a nice little boot out of the top eight. So this is important for both teams. It's a little more important for Boston because Dallas can still make it with a loss. But yeah, it's gonna be a close one. Fuel's coming off a nice little win streak here, with a win against Shanghai, a win against Shanghai, two of those in a row. Um, but yeah, do you think they continue that streak against Boston Uprising, who's at times looked really good and been competing with some very good teams, and at other times have looked okay, and like a discombobulated team. But what Boston shows up this week? Do they win? Does Dallas win? Who you got, Joe?
Yeah, it's a similar sort of thing. I've picked Dallas in the past and they've failed me. But you're right. They are on a winning streak against Shanghai, which last season we would have laughed about. But this season is somewhat
A little more impressive.
of a significant significant thing. Yeah, but like you said, Boston on the outside looking in. Dallas sitting there feeling a little bit more comfortable, but at the same time, it definitely is one they want to pick up, and definitely is one that they have the potential to pick up. I know I had Dallas like fifth or sixth in my preseason power rankings, and for the most part, they've made their way up there. I think it's definitely gonna be a struggle for them. It's one of the hardest matches they've had in these last couple weeks, but I think it's definitely possible to give this one to Dallas still.
Yeah. Um, I think you could go either way on this one. Honestly, they're both really. I think they're both good teams. They've been performing well. They've had some high highs. They've also had some low lows. Both of these teams. Dallas is actually on a three-game winning streak. They beat Fusion, then Shanghai, then Shanghai. Um,
There you go.
Fusion without Boombox, but a nice little three-game win streak. Um, yeah, this is. I think when Boston I think the games where Boston is sort of focused, I think they play really well. It's sort of when it's the one game they have to focus on that week, they sort of turn up. I feel like we saw that with Seoul Dynasty and them beating them 3-1. Last week they won 4-0. They played New York really close. I mean, I think Boston is really going to show up here and put it all out on the line, and I think they'll pull out a win, a very close win. I don't think this is I think I honestly am in the back of my head. I'm like, this is a bad choice, John. Dallas Fuel are good, and they have a good coaching staff, and they're probably going to win this game. But I just have a feeling here for Boston. I really do. And I think it's super important for them as a team that everyone is underrating to make the stage playoffs. So I think they're going to do it. I think they're going to come out and do that. So we differentiate, Joe. This
Yeah.
is it. This is a big game. We move on to Sunday, the first game of Sunday, the Philadelphia Fusion, the Paris Eternal. Um, Joe, is there a little bias in your pick? Are you going to take the Philadelphia Fusion here?
I mean, I am, but it's also, I think, definitely deserved. Like you said, with Boombox out, Philly looked a little bit weak that one week, but Paris is also coming off a pretty notable slump. That I think it's definitely possible. If I guess it would be who usually plays Lucio. I guess Neptuno usually plays their Lucio. That if Neptuno can feed less than Cruz, and if Benbes can feed a little bit more than Sato, I think that's that's going to be the recipe for success. I think for Fusion coming up in this match.
It's all about feeding, huh?
Yeah.
It just comes down to who feeds more, who feeds less. Yeah, I think I'm gonna go Philadelphia Fusion too. I've been unimpressed by this Paris Eternal team lately, and I mean, I would be stupid if I were to say this wasn't going to 5 maps because it's gonna go to 5 maps because it's the Philly Fusion. Um, but I do think Philadelphia ends up pulling it off in the end, which would be a crazy stage for them. Jeez, going 5-2, and I think how many of their wins have been 5 mappers. I think maybe that would be four if they win this one five in 5 maps. And their two losses were the week where they didn't have Boombox, and I think if they had Boombox, they easily would have beat Mayhem at least. So
Saw a tweet about pep talk from one of Philly's coaches, Christopher, who's also involved in Team UK for the World Cup. And that was his comment too. He said, there's three undefeated organizations in the Overwatch League right now. One is NYXL, one is Vancouver Titans, and the third one is Boombox. And it's hard to bet against him.
that's very true. Uh, yeah, I do wonder if he hadn't gotten sick, what the standings would look like today. What they would have looked like. But yeah, I'm going Philadelphia Fusion as well. I think Paris has just not looked that good lately. So, and Philadelphia has looked really good. I think they're impressing me more than I thought they would going into the season. Houston, Atlanta, Houston, Atlanta. They're facing off. They're also, I mean, Atlanta's in a little bit of a more safe spot here. They have 2 games this week, one against Chengdu, another one against Houston. Houston's right on the edge of those stage playoffs. It would be insane if Houston just got a nice little win here and pulled into the station and said, "Hey, we're in the stage playoffs. We're the Houston Outlaws. You guys said we were terrible, but we're here." That would be crazy. But do they do that, Joe? Do they pull off this nice little upset of the Atlanta Reign, who got 4-0'd last week? They didn't look that great, but I think they've surprised some people this stage so far. So I still think people consider them one of the top teams. So this would be a huge upset for Houston. Do they do it?
Yeah, it's definitely going to be difficult for Houston. I think. Think about Atlanta. Like we said last week, didn't look super great, but have had really good moments this stage. And yeah, ideally, we'll be coming off a win against Chengdu on Saturday. Um, um, to put Atlanta at, I think, three. They'll be 4-2 with a win over Chengdu. And I think a combination of that and like I said, I think it's going to have to be a little bit of an edge to Atlanta, I think, just based on what we've seen of them so far this stage.
Yeah, I agree. I'm gonna give the edge to Atlanta as well. And if they go into that map or match 4-2, they're basically stage playoffs bound, um, which could spell trouble. Maybe could spell a Houston. That's making me want to go Houston a little bit more because the game will be a little bit more important for the Houston Outlaws. But I'm gonna go. I'm still gonna go Atlanta here. I'm gonna play it safe, and I'm choosing Atlanta. So it looks like we only chose different in the Boston Dallas game, which is going to be important. So all the on the flank listeners have to watch that game, no matter what.
There you go.
Yes. So I guess that's it for our Week 5 preview. We haven't talked about fantasy, our fantasy league in a while. So I thought I'd give a little update here. Um, we ended up losing last week in a very very sad fashion, Joe.
Oh,
We we were winning. We were up. We were up by by very little. We had 1,045 points, which is a pretty good score. It's a great score actually. Um, so it's very upsetting that we lost, but we were up by about 30 points, and then we just ended up losing by 200. So to the person who scored the most points by far, which is Hip Ivy Void Aid Positive,
mm,
which is a great team name. But we're 1-3 now. I'm very upset because I still think we have one of the best rosters in the league, and we have been losing um, by some very small margins and some situations where I have unfortunately set the wrong lineups and made some bad coaching decisions. So I apologize for that, Joe. And we are in ninth place, and we will improve. We will be back, and we will be better than ever.
absolutely.
Yes. But yeah, that's it. That's it for episode number 29. Next week's episode number 30, and we get ready for some stage playoffs, Joe. I'm excited. Um, if you want to follow us on social media, you can follow us on our personal accounts. Mine is at JWGeorgeIV. Joe's is at Kirkpatrick_Inc. We have a show Twitter account where we tweet out our MVPs, our picks, all of that stuff. It's at On The Flank Show. You can email us on theflankshow@gmail.com if you have any topics you'd like us to talk about. You can email us, or you could tweet at us too if you'd like. Of course, you're listening to this in one way, but if you want to listen to it in a different way, we are at ontheflank.podbean.com. We're at my personal YouTube, which you're best finding on my Twitter page. It's John George, just very hard to search on YouTube and find. We're on iTunes and Apple Podcasts for you iPhone users, and we are on Spotify and Google Play for you Android users. Thank you guys for listening, and have a fantastic end of the stage.